This is Derrick Hayes live with Minister Derrick Rice. We live here in Columbus, Georgia on the campus of Columbus State University at the Let Us Make Man. We would say meeting, conference, or event, but it's a movement, so it's Let Us Make Man movement. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Brother Derrick.
Great to see you. Hey, this brother, he has a light mind. I said, hey, would you like to interview with me one day? He said, we can do it right now. So we're doing it right here on the floor of the Columbus State University Cougars. How you doing today?
I'm well, man. I could not be more excited and thankful because of what's going on here. I'm reminded today, genuinely, of the foreword of a book that was written about Dr. Martin Luther King. And the foreword said that the CIA head at the time said, right after Martin Luther King and Stokely Carmichael met for the second time, he sent a memo out throughout the entire organization and said, if these two meet again, we have to assassinate both of them immediately because we have on our hands a mile like what has just taken place in Kenya. Here's a piece. People probably may not recognize it, but today we had Muslims, we had Christians, we had people who practice traditional African religions, we had people who practice Buddhism. All are part of this organization that have come together recognizing that we gotta call God something, but we don't care what you call God as long as we're liberating oppressed people. This is the kind of work that the government is afraid of. So when you say, how am I feeling? I'm excited because somebody's gonna get freed up.
Well, you just inspired something because the word color, God just gave me something. He said, concentrating on love.
Talk, man.
Open resource.
Talk, man.
He just gave you that? Just right through you. Because you said the Muslims came, Christians came, non-practicing came.
Come on, man.
The brothers came.
And then African traditional religions came.
Right.
Man, everything is here.
Color.
Yeah.
Concentrating on love.
The whole spectrum of God's color.
Resource.
That's strong. I might use that Sunday.
Tell people about a little bit about what you do before we get into this interview.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm Pastor Derrick Rice, and I pastor the Sankofa United Church of Christ in Atlanta, Georgia. We're a small congregation, about 120 members, and we recognize that there's no task more sacred than the liberation of oppressed people.
Okay. Sankofa, what is the meaning with that word?
Sankofa is a word from Ghana. It's a Ghanaian word. It simply means go back and fetch it. And so we are Christians who recognize that we're just as African as people who were born on the continent. And so what it means for us as a Christian organization is we go back and grab the best of who we are as we become the Christians that God has called us to be.
He said go back and fetch it, right?
Go back and fetch it.
So the brother is really focusing evangelism to create hope.
That's it.
That's fetch.
That's it.
Okay, we're going to get into this Derrick interview. The D is for dream. What is your dream?
Well, my dream is that we get our church back, honestly. I talked about the excitement that's associated with all of these faith traditions that have been represented here on today. And it is something to be excited about. But the reality is, while there are a handful of people from the black church that think similarly to the way that I do, the truth of the matter is that pieces of our church that have been taken away from us, because this really, Christianity is an African faith tradition. First person in the Bible to confess the Lord as their Savior was an Ethiopian eunuch.
Right.
He was the treasurer for Kandake, the queen of Sheba. Here's the thing. We've allowed individuals to say that that's the white man's religion. We've allowed individuals to say that white missionaries went to Africa and introduced that religion to them. We had the religion long before they came over here in different sections of the continent. And so what happens is, by default, the church has taken on the context of somebody else's reality. When we get our church back, the freedom that we're talking about is going to be part and parcel of us, just our everyday lives. So my dream is that we get it back and that people come to understand that being Christian doesn't necessarily mean being a sellout.
Okay, the E is for encouragement. What encourages you?
What encourages me is what took place today. For instance, one of my good friends, Baba A.B. Jihad, who is a former imam in one of the masjids here in the Atlanta metropolitan area. For him to stand up and to articulate what I had seen, he was supposed to pray one of the Muslim prayers.
Right.
But he simply stood up and said, I already see what the prayer is supposed to do.
Right.
I already see the prayer having come to fruition.
Right.
So what encourages me is when we can see God moving and have sense enough to call it what it is.
Okay, the R is for resource. What resource does Derrick Rice bring to the table that makes him stand out or unique?
In my opinion, I mean, that question is a little difficult because it borders on arrogance if you push it too hard.
Right.
But in my opinion, One of the resources that I have is the fact that I was born on the streets of Chicago, Illinois. I ain't always been no preacher, but I love God.
Right.
And the resource is I can step out of doing what God has called me to do, literally step out of the pulpit, having preached the word, or step out of having ministered to someone in the hospital, or like I consider what we're doing right now, ministry.
Right.
But I can also remain who I am, such that the name got raised a couple times, Pookie and Ray now. Back alley to the boardroom, I'm comfortable.
Right.
That's a resource in my mind.
Right.
There are a number of people who are preachers or ministers or whatever that can only operate in certain settings.
Right.
Put me wherever and we can make it happen.
Okay. The next R is for ready. When did you know you were ready for what you're doing now?
I knew that I was ready when I was pushed by my mentor. My mentor is Reverend Jeremiah A. Wright Jr.
Okay.
And I let him know that I felt that I had been called to ministry some years ago. And I told him that I was afraid of a call and I did not necessarily want to do it because of some of the issues that I had with the black church.
Right.
And he ran down a litany of individuals who had been called to ministry that didn't look like the people that I had issues with. He said that if God is calling you to do what you have been called to do, you're going to do it anyway. Might as well do it now, and here's why. And so he made it clear to me that if you take the first step, if it ain't what you think God called you to do, then it won't happen. Well, here I am, an individual who was on a paper chase some years ago,
Right.
An individual who's got some stories that I'm not necessarily proud of, but now I'm in the space that God has called me to be in. I knew I was ready when things continued to unfold.
The eyes for individuals, the individual that you like to mention that we should learn more about, or is there someone that in your life that you just want to give some information about, someone up and coming, or
Absolutely. It would, for me, I mean, I could name someone who's up and coming, but I think it's imperative that we lift up a name of an individual that Empire is doing everything that it can to tear down. The Reverend Dr. Jeremiah A. Wright Jr. is a prophet's prophet. He did what prophets like Isaiah and prophets like Jeremiah did. They spoke truth to power, having been given to them by God. But Empire has said that Jeremiah Wright is crazy. Empire has made individuals have to distance themselves from him.
Right.
Empire has said that somehow he's racist because many of the loops that were played in the election back in 2008, right. If you listen to them, he said very clearly, I'm quoting someone else. And in two of the instances, he was quoting a white man. But y'all make him the devil. You need to read the sermons that he's written. You need to listen to the sermons that he's written because they sound a whole lot like what Jesus was talking about when he was here. You need to know something about Reverend Dr. Jeremiah A. Wright Jr.
Right. The sins will continue when things look bleak or are not optimistic. What makes you want to continue?
I recognize that we serve a God who's never made a promise that was not kept. And so at the end of the day, what's true is there are going to be some times that I fail the members of my church. There are going to be some times that I fail my larger community. There are going to be some times that I get off of what I recognize is my call to ministry, to my people, to the liberation of my people. But the God that we serve has never failed. And so the reality is when it looks like or feels like it's time to put him up and quit, there are times that I've backed off of work for a while. But God never stops. And when you get up, dust yourself off, God's right here to keep on moving. So what I use to keep moving is, here's one who will never leave you or forsake you. Right. As long as that's in place, I'm good.
It's like Aaliyah was singing that song. At first you don't succeed.
Oh, that's strong.
Dust yourself off and try again.
Bro, that might preach next week.
Because you talking about work.
Yeah.
Because inside the word industry, you got the word in, because you got to be in something.
I'm with you.
You're going to fall down in the word industry is dust.
Yeah.
And then at the end is try. Because in dust, you got to try.
Come on here, man. The first time I use that, I'm going to give you credit for it.
I don't want credit. we doing an interview, man. We right here live. God's speaking through us.
I appreciate you, man.
The last letter.
No. You got to hit me with that industry one more time. I'm serious about that. Right.
Well, you remember Aaliyah before she was alive. She had a song, and at first you don't, I'm not saying, but she said if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. Right, and in the word industry, you got I-N.
Right.
Because no matter what your career is, you're going to be in something.
Right.
And then you have dust because you're going to rise, you're going to fall.
Sure.
And then you have try at the end. Because no matter what you're in, no matter how many times you fall, you got to dust yourself off.
Strong.
And try again.
Strong. I got it.
And at the end, as we speaking,
right.
you got I on the end, on the beginning of the word.
Right.
You got to have a vision.
Right.
And then at the end of the word, you have why.
Yeah.
You got to find your why. So you won't see. So you won't fall asleep on your dream.
You don't want to see.
Hey, we taking them from the sofa to Sankofa.
Strong,
and
man.
the last letter in the Derrick process is keys.
Okay.
Can you leave the viewer with 1 to 2 to 3, at least one key for success? No matter who's listening, it's something simple that they can take from this. Like we said, they gotta have a model.
Sure.
They gotta have a model. They gotta have something that they can take with them right now and implement into their life.
Let me say this. While I have spent a lot of time lifting up the beauty of the diversity of our group, and I was serious about all of the Muslims, we've got a couple of Buddhists, we've got people who practice African traditional religions, we've got myself who's a pastor, there's another minister, ordained minister on our organizing committee. But I do speak most comfortably from a Christian perspective. So I'm reminded of a story where there were some attorneys who tried to jam Jesus up, ask him, what's the greatest commandment? Now here Jesus is a Northeast African man. We need to start there. So when the question was asked, he knew immediately that he could have named one of the several hundred negative confessions. He knew immediately that he could have named one of the 10 commandments. But instead of naming one of them, because he knew that they were trying to make him name one of them, he said, no, I see what you're doing. I'm gonna go one better. I'm gonna tell you the 2 laws that all of those laws hang on. Here were the 2 laws. Number 1, and these are the keys that you asked for. Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. You cannot succeed in anything unless God is running what's going on. And I'm not suggesting what you call God. I'm a Christian minister. I believe what I believe.
Right.
You better believe something. Number 1, it said love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Then it said love your neighbor. We are responsible for being the Africans that God called us to be. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Africans said, because you are, I am. I can't live outside of a community. It took 2 people to get me here. It's going to take 6 to carry me out of here.
Right.
We're a community. Recognize God has to be in the middle. Recognize that you are a part of a community. And then finally, it says, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. That's the God piece. Love your neighbor. But the last piece says, as yourself. If you don't embrace the Africanness that God created you to be, you ain't authentically doing what God called you to do anyway.
Right.
Be who and how and whatever God created you to be. And so if you happen to split verbs with the best of them.
Right.
If you happen to be the person that ain't made it into the academy, do what you do in the back alley with the best of them.
Right.
Be who God created you to be. Love God, love your neighbor, but do it like God created you to do it.
Because you got to, like you're saying, you talking about these stories, these opportunities.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned the word neighbor. Right? See, God speaks through me through signs.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not how it's spelled, it's how it sounds.
Yeah.
Because back when the Phoenicians,
Yeah.
a lot of people think hooked on phonics is
Teach,
new,
man.
but,
Teach.
But phonics come from the Phoenicians. And so when you say the word neighbor, I hear the word nay in the beginning, because a lot of times we tell people no straight up.
Right.
And then you got
They don't
bored.
even know what you're saying
Then
no
you got
to.
bored because we're not excited. So who wants to be around someone that's not bringing any positive energy?
Strong.
And so we here at the Let Us Make Man conference. My name is Derrick Hayes. I'm live here with Minister, the pastor of the Sankofa Church,
United Church of Christ.
United Church of Christ in Atlanta, Georgia. So it's not just the Derrick interview, it's the Derrick interview.
D squared.
And we live here in Columbus, Georgia. And I thank you for your time.
Bless you, man.
It wasn't just an interview, it was an inspirational experience.
God bless you,
Because
man.
when you saying talking with positive brothers, God has shared stories with you, share things with you, and make sure, like you said, your heart is in it. Because the word ye is in front of the word heart. The word art is the word heart.
Okay.
So he said, where your heart is, your gifts shall also be. So remember, in order to get your start, find out where your heart is.
Strong.
And we thank you for this day.
Bless you, man. I appreciate you.
Amen.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I'm glad you made sure that.